Welcome to Cadence Design Systems Fidelity Tutorial Tuesday, where we show you how to use a feature or demonstrate a technique in just a few minutes. In this video, we're going to show you the new hierarchical selection tools that were added to Fidelity Pointwise 2023. To demonstrate these tools, we're going to use the geometry of a blood pump. In particular, in this video, I'm going to show you the new options that were added to this new toolbar for actually perform hierarchical selections. These are these four tools or four options right here. Keep in mind that we have two other videos where we actually cover all the other options that you have in this new selection toolbar that again was added in Fidelity Pointwise 2023. In particular, for the hierarchical selection, we have this option right here that will allow you to select parents. We have this option right here that will allow you to select children. This one right here to select boundaries. And last but not least, you have an option right here to define what type of hierarchy you want to use for these particular selections. You have the standard hierarchy option where the relationship between parents and children is actually defined purely by topology. And you also have the constraint hierarchy option where the relationship between parents and children is defined by the constraint of grid entities to underlying database entities. In order to use these tools, the first thing that we need to refresh is the hierarchies that we have in the Fidelity Pointwise framework. In order to do that, we're going to go ahead and open the user manual so I can show you where you can find this information if needed. We're going to go to Help User Manual. The user manual is going to open up. From here, go to Select. And right here, you have an option for the hierarchical selection. You can see that in this particular page, you have all the options that we're going to be covering in this particular video. Let's go ahead and go with the first one, which is the Select Parents. I have in here two nice images showing you what the hierarchy actually looks like in Fidelity Pointwise. If we look at the image on the left, we have the standard hierarchy option. So if I actually select a given block, and then with this type of hierarchy, I click on the Select Parents button, you're going to be selecting all the domains that are used to bound that particular block. If I select the domain and I click on the Select Parents again, you're going to be selecting all the connectors that bound that particular domain. Looking to the right here on the database side of things, if you select a database model and then you click on the Select Parents option, you're going to be selecting all the bounding quilts. If you select a particular quilt and you select the Select Parents option, you're going to be selecting the trim surfaces that were used to define that particular quilt. And again, from there, the parents are going to be the surface and the trimming curves that were actually used to define that trim surface. If we look right here on the right, we are actually looking at the hierarchy for the constraint hierarchy option. In this case, if you select a domain and then you click on the Select Parents option, if that domain is constrained to an underlying database surface, of course, you're going to go from the domain to its parent, which is the quilt. In the same way, if you select a given connector in your grid and then you click on the Select Parents option, a couple of things can happen. If that connector is actually constrained to an underlying quilt, then you're going to go from the connector and select the quilt. However, if that particular connector is constrained to an underlying database curve, then you're going to go from a connector to a curve. Keep in mind that we also have a page right here for the Select Children option. And if you click in here, you're going to see that the hierarchy is exactly the same, except that you actually go in the opposite direction, since instead of selecting parents, you're going to be selecting its children. Now that we understand hierarchy a little bit more, let's go ahead and take a look at this particular example. Like I said, we have the blood pump. This blood pump actually has been already quilted. It's ready for meshing. And we have already generated a surface grid and a volume grid that you can see if I move a little bit farther away. Now let's go ahead and play with some of these options. As I mentioned before, the first thing that you need to do is to define what kind of hierarchy you want to use for your selection. We're going to start with the first option, which is the standard hierarchy. So what happens with this option? If I actually go in here, of course, I need to make sure that my masks, my selection masks are turned on. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit closer again. I'm going to go ahead and select that particular domain right there. And what happens if I actually choose right here the Select Parents option? I have a given domain selected and I'm going to select the parents. So in that particular case, you can see also in the List tab right here that the two connectors that are bounding that particular domain are actually selected. In the same way, if I select the connectors and I go to select children, you can see that all the domains that are actually using those connectors are going to be selected. For example, if I select my entire block, you can see right here on the list tab that I'm selecting my block. I'm going to expand this one as well. So from the block, if I select the select parents option, you're going to be selecting all the domains are actually used to bound or to build that particular block. From all those domains selected, if I click the same button again, of course, as you can see on the list panel on the left, you're selecting all the connectors that bound all those domains that were selected. Okay, and of course, you can go up as well from the connectors to the domains and then to the blocks again. Now, let's take a look at what happens if we work with the database entities. I'm going to go ahead and select that particular quilt right there. And I want to show you kind of what's going on right here. So if I select a quilt, I'm going to show you some hidden entities right here, which are going to be all the database entities that were used to build that quilt. Okay, so let's select that quilt, and if I use right here the option to select its parents, notice on the left panel that now from the quilt I actually selected the trim surface that was used to define that quilt. If I click on the same button again, of course you're defining the B-spline surface and the trimming curves that were used to actually define the trim surface. And of course you can go down the chain again from all the underlying surfaces to a trim surface, from that to the quilt, and from the quilt, of course, if I click again, I can go all the way to the model. So let's go ahead and turn this on again. I'm now going to change my hierarchy from the standard hierarchy to the constrained hierarchy, and let's see what happens. I'm going to again select my domain right there. And what happens if I actually, in this case with the new hierarchy, I use the select parents option. So click on that one, and as you can see right here on the left side, now the quilt has been selected. I started with that domain. I'm using the new hierarchy tab in here, which is again is a constraint hierarchy, and then from that particular domain I went to the quilt. From these, of course, you can go again to select children, and you can see that you're going to go back to the particular domain, and you can go back and forth. The last tool I would like to show you in this video is this one right here, which is the select boundaries option. In order to understand what this tool is going to do, let's go ahead and go to the user manual very quickly again. In the user manual, I'm going to go back to the hierarchical selection, and then this is the option that we're going to be looking at, which is the select boundaries. We have a nice graph right here showing you exactly what this option is going to do. If you select the database model, quilt, trim surface, or a surface, and then you click on the select boundaries option, that is going to basically select all the database boundaries that are bounding those initial entities you have selected. Keep in mind that in Fidelity Pointwise, database boundaries are not actually shown in the list panel. Now, if we look at the grid side of things, if you select a block and then you use the select boundaries option, you're going to be selecting all the domains bounding that particular block. If you select a given domain and then use the same select boundaries option, you're going to select all the connectors that are actually bounding that particular domain. Back in Pointwise, let's go ahead and take a look at this option. I'm going to select a particular domain right here. And if I use the select boundaries option, you can see that the connectors bounding that particular domain are now selected. In the same way, if I select a given block right here and you use the select boundaries option, all the domains that are bounding that block are going to be selected. If I click on the same select boundaries option again, that now all the connectors that bound all those domains are going to be selected. If you like this video, be sure to click the thumbs up button, subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. If you have any questions or suggestions for future videos, drop us a line down below or connect with us on LinkedIn, which is linked in the description. Thank you all and have a pleasant Tuesday.